6.5 out of every 100 people who finished law school in 2011 landed a job at one of the country's biggest law firms. Only 6 or 7 people out of 100. By 2024, that number was 18.3 out of 100. In other words, big law firm hiring almost tripled in 13 years. And so, if you're about to apply to law school, that might be the best news you've heard all week. The market came back, it's hiring again. Those horror stories from 2011 are over. But there's something that nobody tells you about that recovery, because that jump from 6.5 out of 100 to 18.3 out of 100 wasn't the whole story, wasn't the whole market just getting healthier. It was two slices of the market improving, but everything else either stayed flat or quietly died off. And that one slice that carried the entire recovery just turned down for the first time in years. But there is also one number totally in your control that roughly doubles your odds at every rung of this thing. Most people applying to law school right now have no idea what it is, but I'm going to share with you what it is today. And I read these law school employment filings every single year, the ones that law schools would rather you skim past or ignore, and I'm going to talk you through what's actually in them. Now, when I talk about big law firms today, I'm talking about the giants, the firms with more than 500 lawyers, the ones paying those giant $250,000 a year salaries you've heard about. In 2011, again, they hired only 6 or 7 graduates out of every 100. By 2024, they were taking more than 18 out of every 100, nearly triple. At the same time, public interest work grew as well. The nonprofit and advocacy jobs, they doubled from 4 per 100 grads to almost 9 out of 100 grads. So that is the recovery. But certain areas of legal education, legal hiring did not go up. They actually went down. So for example, solo practice declined significantly. Hanging your own shingle right out of school in 2011, over 1,000 new graduates did exactly that. In 2024, only 169 new graduates did that, down 84%. And so the classic fallback, the thing you did when no firm wanted you, the idea of you starting your own practice, that's basically gone. It fell off a cliff because small, everyday legal work that used to feed a brand new solo lawyer got swallowed up by bigger shops and by software. Business and in-house roles, the other big backup, nearly cut in half over the same stretch. The small and mid-sized firms, the under 50 lawyers, where so many working lawyers spend their careers, that's eroding as well. Flat in the good years, shrinking in the others. So here is the real shape of it. The market didn't broadly recover. It pulled almost all of its growth into one channel, the biggest firms, while everything that used to catch you if you missed the top quietly shut down. So there's a bet that you make when you go to law school. A law degree used to spread your risk. If you missed the big firms, you could end up at a mid-sized firm. You miss that, you go in-house or you start your own practice. But now all the growth is sitting behind one door. Everything has funneled into the big firms while the side doors close. So it's like you're making a bet on big law specifically. A law degree is no longer a broad, safe credential, and it's instead turned into a wager on landing in one narrow, crowded slice of the market. And with any bet, the only question that matters is your odds. Now, concentration sounds great, but of course, if things stop growing, then you're in trouble. And for the class of 2025, there was a change. Those big firm jobs where you have firms of more than 500 lawyers, they climbed for years. It fell 7.5% in a single year. 2024 was the peak. 2025 was the first step down. And the fallbacks are gone, and so the next option down is a lot thinner than it used to be. And so that pipeline is a bit problematic. A summer associate's a rising 3L, so the class of firm hires this summer is the full-time class that hires roughly 18 months later. If you shrink the summer class now, as firms are doing, then you're shrinking the entry-level door for the people applying to law school today. And so the headline out of those 2025 numbers was record employment, 87.7% of graduates employed, highest ever. Schools ran with it. But two things happened at the same time that people didn't really connect. First is that the graduating class shrank by about 7%. You had fewer graduates chasing jobs, and so even with fewer jobs out there, the percentage employed ticked up. And the second thing is that they changed what counts. This year, jobs the law schools fund themselves, positions the school literally pays for, got folded into that headline number. And so the record is actually a smaller pie, cut more generously, with the school's own money counted as employment. Now, I'm not saying the schools are lying. The number they're sharing is technically true, but it's built to make you feel safe signing the loan, and you can't afford that right now. You've got to know who really gets those big firm jobs, the ones that the whole market now runs on. And so I pulled the data on the most recent graduating class with the full firm by firm breakdown for every ABA accredited law school in the country. Then I sorted the schools by their median LSAT score. For those who aren't familiar with it, median just means that every school reports the middle score of the students they admit. Half the class scored above it, half the class scored below it. Think of it as the school's typical score. And so for the schools with a median LSAT of 170 or higher, 51.5% of their graduates land a big firm job, more than half of them. But if you step down one band, the 165 to 169 median range, only 26% of those graduates land a full-time job at a big law firm. You go down to the 160 to 164 range, only 15% get the big firm job. If you're going in the 155 to 159 band, only 7 in 100 land a big firm job. And if you're below 155, honestly, just forget it. 3.1%, 3 graduates out of 100 land that same job. So every 5 points of median LSAT based on the law school you're going to roughly doubles your odds at getting a big law job, which is the only slice of the market still growing. This data comes straight out of the school's own filings for every accredited law school. This is the same public report that anybody can pull. You can go check it right now on the American Bar Association website. Now, I'm not saying here that the LSAT magically gets you the job, but follow the chain here. Big firms recruit at a short list of schools, and that list is sorted almost perfectly by prestige, which lines up almost perfectly with that median LSAT score. And so your LSAT score decides which schools will admit you, and the schools that you get into decide what your odds are at getting the job. So the score gets you into the school gets you the pipeline to get the job. And the reason why firms cluster at the very top like that is simple. It's money. A big law firm can bill its clients hundreds of dollars an hour for a first-year lawyer who's barely done anything yet. The thing that lets them charge that rate is the name on the diploma. And so they recruit where the famous names are, the top of the ladder, and they barely look down below that. And so if you want to have better odds at getting better jobs upon graduating, it's going to be at those top law schools where the big law firms are recruiting. The names are not going to shock you. You've heard all of them before. Georgetown, Columbia, Harvard, NYU, Berkeley, it's that tier of schools, the so-called top 14, top of the ladder, they own the pipeline. At the other end, the bottom ranked schools, they didn't send a single graduate to the big law firms, 0. And so picture 2 students, both signed for 6 figures. One went to a top ranked law school. They've got better than even jobs that their job is going to pay off that loan. The other at one of the bottom tier schools, not going to be able to pay it off. Totally different outcome. You could have either a 50-50 shot of getting the big firm job or getting a 3 out of 100, 3% odds of getting that same job. And your LSAT score is the ticket to getting the job. And so you want to get into better law schools, to get into better pipelines, get more scholarship money. The LSAT score is what gets you in there. If you want my help getting a higher LSAT score, getting into better law schools, I'm happy to help you out. I'm offering free LSAT tutoring for everybody watching this video now or later. You can book that free LSAT tutoring lesson with me personally at unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG as well.